conversations anyway, but I'll introduce myself. I'm Anastasia Krutulis. I am the Director of Out-of-State Recruitment for the College of Science at Purdue. I also am a homeschool mom. My husband and I spent 17 years homeschooling our kids. I have 4 kids, 3 of whom have already graduated from Purdue and 1 who's still a junior in computer science at Purdue. So I understand, you know, the uncertainties and how scary it can be, you know, going into the college experience. But I will tell you that with successes behind me, it's and being in this position and talking to lots of families all the time, including homeschool families, I can hopefully provide you with some information. My big presentation is typically about science, about students doing research, talking about STEM, engineering, and technology at Purdue. But given the fact that this is a nice small group and the fact that I would prefer not to do a formal presentation, I'm happy just to answer questions that you all have. And it doesn't have to be about Purdue. I can talk to you about the application process in general for universities. I can talk about, you know, how students, what they can do to get their application ready. So please feel free. I don't know if you all are, if you want to unmute yourself, that's probably easier, and we can go from there. If not, if you don't have any specific questions right now, I can just launch into what STEM opportunities at Purdue, and then also talk about the application process in general. So, all right. So with Purdue, if your children are interested in science, engineering, technology, there are multiple options at Purdue where they can find a way to that suits their learning style and best suits their interests. So for science, we consider that more of the like the foundational, you know, why and what is this, and exploratory process in the sciences. And engineering, it's more, okay, we know there's a problem here. How are we going to solve that problem? What are we going to do to create a solution that helps people to solve this problem? And in technology, the Polytechnic is more hands-on. All right, the engineers have created it. Let's turn it over to the technicians, and they're going to figure out how to implement it, how to innovate with it. So to give a good example, with let's say with computers is a perfect example. Everybody is using them. Software development, the underlying code is computer science. The hardware itself is engineering. And then using both those things to learn how to do robotics and animation and things like that, that's all Purdue Polytechnic. So what grade and age do students need to do dual enrollment? There's really no single answer for that. If you're looking for your students to have some college credit experience, I know that there are a lot of community colleges that will dual enroll students to give them high school credit as well as college credit. But it depends on where your student is looking for their college experience. If they already know, or if they're exploring, even as a sophomore or, you know, 15, 16, we will talk to those students. So reach out to universities and try to find somebody like me who will sit down with you, because one of the things that we do in the College of Science is one-on-one meetings with families and students, and we will we'll sit for an hour, even longer if we have it, to really make sure that we talk through, you know, what your students are interested in, what they're good at, and then give them some ideas of what directions they can go. And every university also will have different pathways that are, there's kind of some strategies involved. So there's a lot of different ways of working with computers and studying computers at Purdue. So we want to know, okay, this one's probably a little bit more math heavy than this one, you know. So we'll sit down with students and really get into what they're good at and what they and perhaps find them the best approach for what they're interested in learning. So it's not necessary though. You can apply to Purdue. You don't have to have any dual credit. As long as students can demonstrate that they have high school equivalent coursework And I'm sure that out there, there's a lot of, still probably even more than when I was dealing with this, a lot of packaged transcript creators, you know, things like that, that you can use to kind of keep track of all of that and to create, in effect, a transcript for your child, and even assigning grades. Homeschoolers are all over the map. I've taught through co-ops. My kids took on a few online courses. They did a lot of self-study, and ultimately they were able to pull it all together, and along with their activities and to demonstrate that they were, you know, ready and prepared to enter college. So for the application process, at least for Purdue and most other universities as well, it's a holistic review that's fairly common. So we are interested in the activities that students have. We're interested in whether or not they're engaged in their community. Do they play an instrument? They don't have to play an instrument if they don't want to, but we'd like to see that they're actually doing something beyond their academics. So if they're in 4-H, or if they're involved with volunteering with the church, all those kind of things, we want to see that on the application. And then coursework, grades, and test scores. Students we do still encourage the SAT or the ACT, although this next year, and I don't know if this is going into the future, we're calling it, we're being test flexible. It's the first time I've actually said that out loud. So test flexible, because we know that there are some kids who are going to be coming into this next year who haven't really had the opportunity to take those exams for various reasons because of COVID and the way things have been kind of messed up. So we are being flexible with those test scores. We do want students to have their test scores though, if in any way possible, to get that SAT or ACT score. We would like to see that. Any other questions as I guide along here? The common application, if anybody coming into a senior level year where this is the year that your student is going to be applying, you can always look online and look at the common application. Just Google common application. The essay topics are always kind of out there. So I always encourage students to kind of get familiar with what they're going to be asked in the application process. So they're going to have that big essay. And generally, you know, students really fret over this. What am I going to write about? What am I going to tell us a story, tell us something that, you know, that you worked hard on, and or if you overcame a difficulty, those kind of things. And all those questions, I always want students to familiarize themselves with the questions in advance, because then the topics are kind of knocking around in their heads as they go through just ordinary life, and something will come to them. And the essay can pretty much write itself at that point, as opposed to sitting down like, okay, what am I going to write? What am I going to write? What am I going to write? You know, just, it'll be more natural. And honestly, those essays, they're wonderful. I love to read them. I don't personally, I'm not part of the admissions process, but for other reasons, I do get to read them sometimes, and they're wonderful. And for other universities, each university typically has their own set of essays as well. So for Purdue, we have what we just call Why Purdue and Why Major. So why are you applying to Purdue? So, and it really does behoove students to pursue opportunities to visit if they can, or virtual visit right now, because we're not doing any formal visits, and I think a lot of universities are in the same position, or to come in and meet with somebody, meet with us virtually, meet with other college representatives virtually, whether it's one-on-one or in a bigger session, so that you can get your individual questions answered about that university, and that will help in the application process to let them know, oh, you really are interested. Because there are lots of students who just sort of point and shoot, and they're just applying to a bunch of different universities, and we can tell if you really aren't interested in Purdue, it shows in the application. So do some research, and make sure that there's something about a particular university that you're truly interested in, and you can demonstrate that in the application. Any questions? So one of the things that it's a very common question for homeschoolers coming in the application process is how, I already talked about the transcript. put together something, make it look nice and make it legible that we can kind of understand the flow of your students' coursework. Also, another common question that we get is American Sign Language accepted as their foreign language requirement? It is. So I know that's a very common thing for homeschool students to take ASL as opposed to taking a French class or anything like that. And most universities have like a 2-year high school requirement in foreign language, so ASL counts. The other thing is the common questions. Sometimes there are classes that through co-ops or through organizations that have names that aren't always obvious that they're what they are. So if there's a name of a course that doesn't necessarily get to what exactly the course is, just in parentheses put behind it, you know, this is a biology class or this is a math class. So that's important too, because we want to know the names of those courses and how they, you know, what they reflect in the students' learning. So I covered a lot of grounds in a little bit of short of time. Anybody have any questions? Honestly, I'm available. So how old are your students? What grades are we talking, or you know, what age groups are we talking about here? Eighth grade. Oh my gosh. Okay, Aaron. 8th grade. Okay. So they're just now coming into their high school experience at this point. So, all right. So it's been a while. Like I said, my youngest is a junior at Purdue now. So, and I know there's a lot of opportunities for online dual enrollment and things. Is that fairly, oh, 7th grade. Hi, Nikolai. All right. You're doing your research way in advance. That's excellent. I like to see that. So is it fairly typical? Do you plan, Nikolai, do you plan to take some high school courses online through an online high school, or are you hoping to do your high school experience as dual credit with a community college or something like that? Because I know that there's so many different options out there, a little bit of both. Okay, all right. And you should be, so when you do get those dual enrollment courses with the community college, you end up with college level coursework and a transcript. So if you're doing that, if you're looking at doing those dual enrollment classes, and you kind of have in mind a university you want to go to, make sure you talk to that university and see if they if the coursework transfers to that university. So if in any given state, a lot of times the community colleges work, okay, good, work with the have a pathway with their state system, their state universities. So it makes it a little easier to know, like, okay, this class I can take that on to the next level, to the university. But if you have your heart set on someplace else, make sure that you look at that university and see if that coursework actually transfers in. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to. It helps if it does, because that helps you get some college credit. But sometimes the courses will just come in as sort of general education credits that don't really count again toward a specific course that you would be taking in college. We do accept AP exams, so it depends. That's one of the things that depends on what major you come into as to whether or not that AP exam is going to get you out of a class or not. So for example, if you take AP biology and you are wanting to be a biology major, that doesn't necessarily get you out of your entry-level biology classes. If you take AP biology and you're in math, or if you're in English, or if you're in agriculture, or if you're in communications or business, typically that AP biology will help you get out of a requirement for those other majors. So it's very dependent upon what the course is and as to what major you're coming into. And that's going to vary from university to university as well. So that's another one of those good things, to have a conversation with someone from the university to find out exactly how how that works. Also, I know Purdue has a transfer guide online that you can go in and you can see exactly what how those credits come in through the APs. But like I said, they will vary from major to major and from university to university. Other questions? So I should put up my contact information. I am just Anastasia at purdue.edu. And like I said, even though I'm in the College of Science, I am the out-of-state recruiter, so I know a lot about how Purdue compares to other universities across the country. And I also, as a former librarian, know how to connect people with information. So I am, if I can't answer your question, I can always find out who the right person is to answer that question for you. But also, if you have questions along the way, even if it has nothing to do with Purdue, but has to do with the application process or with the just advice along the way as you're going through, please feel free to reach out. I don't mind. I really enjoy talking to students, and I really, Nikolai, I appreciate that you're doing this. And that you're looking ahead so far and really doing your research in advance. I have a great deal of respect for that. So good job. Any other questions? Well, I'm sorry that I thought I was slated for 4:30, and I'm sorry that I was a little bit late, but I think I covered what I have as far as just general advice. Again, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time. Okay.
Thank you so much for being on.
Okay.
We appreciate you.
Oh, used to live near Purdue. Did you really? All right. Well, you're welcome. All right. Well, have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. So we have our speaker from Warren Wilson College on now. So I will turn the, turn the microphone, but not really, over to them to share with us. So thanks for being here.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. So my name is Skye Telka, and I am the Assistant Director of Admissions at Warren Wilson College. I'm actually not the counselor who works with the state of Tennessee, but I do work with Virginia, so I work with a lot of those border folks there. And I'm happy to come and talk to you guys today a little bit about our college. I was really excited when Erin asked me to join because she is an alum of Warren Wilson as well. So we are just over the hill, I think, for most people in Asheville, North Carolina. So up in the mountains, nice, cool, wonderful area. And we have a pretty amazing campus. So it's 1,100 acres, 26 miles of hiking trails, but at the same time, we're 15 minutes from downtown Asheville. So you kind of get the best of both worlds of nature and the Swananoa River and cows, but then you can also be downtown having food and art and culture and all those things that make Asheville really wonderful. Warren Wilson itself is really, really small. We're about 700 students all together. So really tight-knit community and really personal feel when it comes to those classrooms. Most classes are about 10 to 1, so you really get to know the faculty, you really get to know the staff at Warren Wilson. We're also highly residential, so 95% of students live on campus, and about 40% of faculty and staff live on campus. So we always talk about how, like, not only are you going to go over to your faculty's house for dinner, but you might end up babysitting for them, or, you know, mowing their lawn for extra pocket money or things like that. So it really is this community that supports each other. The biggest thing that I always like to talk about when it comes to Warren Wilson, because it's very different than most colleges you will find, is the fact that we are a work college. So what that means is every single student has a job on campus and helps to pay for their tuition through the work that they do. So you're actually building equity in your own education. That can be the very outdoorsy farm, garden, and forest. We grow about 35% of our food on campus, which is pretty great. So we have cows, sheep, pigs, bees. I volunteer with the beekeeping crew. And then even like our forestry crew grows shiitake mushrooms for campus. And then we have an amazing craft program. So they do things like blacksmithing, woodworking, fiber arts, ceramics. And then it's everything else that makes campus happen. So working in the tech theater program, working on admissions crew giving tours, working in the campus genetics lab, really anything that a faculty or staff member might do, there's a student equivalent of it. So that's one of the main things that we always like to talk about. Coming in as a freshman, every student is going to work 10 hours a week, but it's very much built into your daily schedule. It's not like you have an 8-hour shift you're expected to show up for. More common, it's you have a class in the morning with a 3-hour break in the middle, and you might head out into the field or into the office for an hour and do your work, and then go and grab some lunch in the cafeteria, and then study up and head off to your next class. So it's kind of a nice progression. It's also a really great way to connect with people. There's a lot of opportunity to get to know people. You pretty much have to stay in your dorm room all the time if you don't want to make friends, because there's work on campus, there's going to class on campus, there's living in dorms on campus, and then there's also our service component. And that's the thing that also makes Warren Wilson unique, is every single student will do a service project while they're there. It's kind of built into the education requirement, and it is one of the requirements to graduate. And so it really varies on a case-to-case basis. So some students will, do volunteering with a local organization here in Asheville. Some people will do it in their hometown. We had a student 2 years ago who spent a year at the Jane Goodall Institute in Africa, and that's actually where she did all of her service work. So those are the two other sides of Warren Wilson that I always like to discuss first, but we are a college first and foremost. That's why students come here. But we really do feel like those two fit in. I always joke that there are two types of students. One is the student who comes in and knows exactly what they want to do. And so they'll deep dive and they'll be like pre-vet, and they'll be doing classes in the biology department, and then they'll be working on the farm, and then they'll be volunteering at the local animal shelter. So they're kind of doing everything that fits into what they're planning on doing in life. The other side is what I like to call our Renaissance student, that you can be a cultural anthropology major, and you can be on blacksmithing crew, and you can volunteer at the women's shelter. So you can do all the things that personally feed you without actually drawing away too much from what you're planning on studying. As far as our education style, we're a lot like most schools, and first year is going to be all about those general education credits. So if you're coming in and you're more of an art and humanities person, getting those math and science credits out of the way. Of course, we take, AP, IB, dual enrolled. I think some students definitely do the dual enrolled track these days. And then students actually don't have to declare their major until the end of their sophomore year. So that gives them a lot of flexibility to figure out what track they actually want to be on. And the reason for the end of sophomore year is that starting in junior year is the beginning of a 18-month capstone project. So this is you taking charge of your education and really deep diving into what you're passionate about, which I feel like is kind of what homeschoolers do most of the time. So this is a really great opportunity to really hone in on that one question that you have that you've been wanting to pursue and deep dive into that. You choose 3 faculty to work with you on that, so it's a 3-to-1 ratio, but it's very much you driving the train. So in the sciences, that tends to be really original research driven. Social work and psychology do a complete practicum and field placement during that time. Outdoor education will actually create a week's worth of curriculum and test it in the classroom. This is also a really great opportunity to take that service learning and that volunteering component and combine it into what you're doing. So if you're thinking that you want to be a conservation biology major, well, then this is the time that you can go and you can do field work with the National Park Service or the National Forest Service. And so you're volunteering, but you're also completing your capstone and getting research done for your capstone. Campus itself, I am wearing my Warren Wilson athletics jacket here. So we do have a pretty amazing athletics program, but it's nice that, we recruit athletes from across the country, as well as students who maybe just want to, try out for the team or train with the team. So we have basketball, soccer, swimming, lacrosse, cross country, tennis, and then my personal favorite is cycling. We actually have a mountain biking team that placed first at nationals last year. So we're considered to be one of the top cycling teams in the country right now. But once again, we have 25 miles of trail, so it kind of makes sense in that way. We have a ton of different clubs as well. I want to say we have almost 80 different clubs. So it's everything from, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Capoeira to Dungeons and Dragons. And it only takes 3 people to start a club. So odds are if you come and we don't have a club that fits your interest, you can find 2 other people to help find to start that club. And I am always willing to sponsor a club. I'm currently the knitting club advisor. So let's see, what else? So big things about Warren Wilson for students who are interested in applying, we do what we call the holistic review process, which means that I read every single application beginning to end. I look at all those details, all those little bits and pieces that you think no one would ever read. I look at the essays, and then for when it comes to our homeschoolers, you know, I look at those transcripts that you and your family put together yourself. So we're looking for a reading list, a letter of recommendation from someone who's outside of your core family unit, and then also just, you know, kind of a brief transcript of what you've been working on during your time as a homeschool student. But because of the fact that we did the holistic review process, it makes us pretty adept at reading those. I read a lot of narrative-based transcripts, and so it gives us a really good idea of what those students are coming in and what skills they already have. Warren Wilson is definitely the place for those self-actualized students, and so I feel like homeschool students are a pretty sizable population at Warren Wilson already. The other thing that's really worth mentioning is the financial aid component. So we have a program at Warren Wilson that's called Milepost One. And this is a program, we're now going into our third year of this, but for any scholarships, you know, we have merit-based scholarships. As I said, we're a work college, so you get your work scholarships. Then there's always the federal scholarships that are available. But Milepost One is a full tuition scholarship. So 25 students a year receive that, and it covers the full cost of tuition to go to Warren Wilson. So there is some room and board that are out of pocket, but we do have some scholarship and loan options to help you pay for that, but the full cost of tuition is covered. And that scholarship is really taking aim at what we call like that oft-forgotten middle class in the whole higher education. So the families who make too much to actually get any scholarships, but not enough to be able to pay for school. And there are a lot of families that are in that situation nowadays, so we're trying to help address that. And so those are predominantly for our out-of-state students, and something that I would encourage any student who's looking at Warren Wilson to apply for as well. That was a lot of me talking. Does anybody have any questions at this point? I'm gonna start dancing. Well, I'm always happy to share more about Warren Wilson. I did include a couple links here, or we'll pull up a couple links really quick so that you can learn more about our campus. One moment. All right, so I do have a quick video that I'm going to share that has kind of a better idea of what Warren Wilson looks like and what it's all about. So it's a video that we have listed on YouTube. And then what kind of farming jobs and hobbies do you offer? So in regards to farming, there are kind of a ton of different directions you can go. And I will definitely put out that contact information for Tennessee. So we do have a large-scale meat operation at Warren Wilson. So as I said, cows, sheep, pigs. So when you come and you sit in the cafeteria, Gladfelter at Warren Wilson, you have a chance to eat a Warren Wilson hamburger at Warren Wilson. The other side of that is that we have an amazing vegan vegetarian cafe downstairs. So we're also a PETA A+ certified campus, which is something that you don't always see. PETA A+ certified meat operation on campus. We do have a really large garden as well, so people who are a little bit more plant-based can definitely learn all about that. And we've been doing a lot around sustainable forestry. So growing up in the Southeast, a lot of people know that like they'll plant their land in timber and then they have to wait 50 years for that payday. But we're doing a lot to make sure that there are products that farmers can harvest in the meantime while they're waiting for that crop to come in. So things like ginseng, shiitake mushrooms. We're doing a project right now to grow truffle mushrooms here, and it's really exciting because this is the end of that year, so we're going to be able to harvest those truffles this year. And then, of course, you know, as I said, beekeeping and a lot of value-added goods as well. So we have like dairy cows on campus, and they're starting to do programs that are like cheese making and things like that also. And then our herb crew is wonderful that they make different salves, teas, tinctures, whenever you go down and have an opportunity to, like, if you have allergies, you can go down to Herb Crew and they'll make you up a tincture for something. Let's see. Student research options. There is a ton. It really depends on what students themselves are focusing in and what that big, deep burning question is. We had one student that was working this year, going back to sustainable forestry again. He was trying to sprout 5 different crops from seed and planting them and tracking how their growth progress would go to see if they could scale that out to farmers to be able to start growing on their own land. I worked with a student last year that we actually went up, I led a trip to DC that was working with the Friends Committee on National Legislation, and he was working around the demilitarization of police, which was rather fitting for where we are right now. And so that's what he did his entire capstone project on, was demilitarizing the police and looking at the 1033 program. What other research options are going on? We've been doing a lot with tardigrades. I'm not sure if anyone knows what they are, but they're also known as water bears, and they're amazing microscopic creatures that are pretty much indestructible. They can be shot into space, they can be crushed, they can be dehydrated for 100 years, and they will still continue to survive. And so Warren Wilson has been leading the pack in regards to tardigrade research. And so we have a number of tardigrades that have been named by Warren Wilson students, which have some pretty ridiculous names, if you can imagine. We also have a really amazing archaeology program. And so students have been doing a lot of work with archaeology and some of the Cherokee tribes in our area. And then most recently, we've had a really great partner who has been working with agricultural hemp practices here in the Asheville area. Because of the North Carolina Farm Bill, they've been doing a lot of work around CBD and then other applications for large-scale hemp operations. Yeah. Let's see. And let me get morning's information up. So give me 1 second. And then I want to say that one of my favorite programs that we have at Warren Wilson that's definitely unique from other schools is that we have a really fantastic outdoor leadership program. So working in conjunction with the sciences, but also that, you know, side of student development and education. And so we actually partner with the North Carolina Outward Bound School. And so students are able to go and do classes through Outward Bound, and that'll count as college credits. And even students who might not be majoring in outdoor leadership can still go out and do those classes. So that's a really fun opportunity for students to kind of get outside their comfort zone and see what they're capable of. And so I'm just going to share the information for Morning Naughton, who is the counselor who works with Tennessee. And so that is all of her information, and you're welcome to contact her if you have any more questions or any more thoughts. Anybody else have any questions? I feel like I talked really fast and now I don't have enough to say. So thanks you guys so much for, you know, being able to have me meet with you today, even though we're not all in the same place. I wish you could come and see Asheville because it's beautiful at this time of year, but maybe later.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today and being here. We have also recorded this, so if it's okay with you, we'll share it with other homeschoolers that are interested.
Perfect. Awesome. Sounds good. And yeah, feel free to check out that video link as well. So
thank you so much.
Perfect. Yeah. And, you know, once people are able to come and visit freely, we always invite families to come and visit Warren Wilson. We would love to host you on campus. And as I said, the cafeteria, the food is unbelievable. And so we'd always like to host you for lunch, if nothing else. So, well, thanks you guys for having me today. And if there's anything else, let me know.